Maybe you don't need to become a new person. Maybe you need to stop living as if your identity needs to be approved by other people. Because there is a huge difference between living your life and constantly watching yourself while you live it. You speak, but first you evaluate how it will sound. You make a decision, but first you imagine who might disapprove. You post something, and even though you tell yourself you don't care, you check who reacted. You walk into a room and automatically notice who is looking at you, who accepts you, who seems indifferent. And little by little, something dangerous happens. You stop asking yourself what you want. You start asking what will be accepted. It is not a lack of time, it is not a lack of money, it is not a lack of talent. Many times it is not even a lack of discipline. It is an internal configuration, a way of relating to yourself, in which the outside world becomes the permanent judge of your existence. And as long as that court has the authority to tell you whether you are enough, no amount of success will ever be enough. Carl Jung spent much of his work examining precisely this tension between the individual and the world around them. And in this journey, we are going through 7 steps. First, you will recognize how the external gaze began directing your life. Then you will discover the mask you built to be accepted. You will understand why comparison does not simply destroy your self-esteem, but can actually pull you away from your own path. You will learn to withdraw your projections, enter periods of solitude, and build a disciplined inner life. And finally, you will reach the most difficult point, stopping the need for the world to confirm that you are doing the right thing. Because there is a silent danger in continuing to live this way. It does not happen all at once. It does not destroy your life in a single afternoon. It happens slowly. You get used to it. You adapt. You become functional. Until one day, you look around and discover something uncomfortable. Everything seems fine, but you do not feel that your life completely belongs to you. Maybe you do this every morning. You check your phone. You look at what is happening, what other people are doing, who is moving forward, who is traveling, who bought something, who got a new job, who got married, who succeeded. And without realizing it, you begin calculating your own position. You do not say, I am living. You say, where am I compared to them? Maybe you do something even more subtle. Before making a decision, you imagine the reactions. What will they think? What if they think I'm overreacting? What if they are disappointed? What if I'm wrong? And then you choose the option that creates the least friction, not necessarily the one you want, the one that creates the least disapproval. That looks like prudence, but sometimes it is fear disguised as maturity, and this is where the first shift begins. Your life can be completely organized, and still be organized around an identity you never consciously chose. Jung called the persona part of this structure, the social mask, the face we learn to present so we can function within the world. And the mask is not the enemy. You need adaptation. You need to know how to behave in different environments. You need to fulfill roles. The problem begins when you forget that you are wearing a mask, when you begin to believe that the mask is you. Then something strange happens. You no longer use your image to relate to the world. You use your life to protect your image. And that is where alienation begins. But there is a mistake almost no one notices. We think reclaiming our freedom means stopping ourselves from caring about other people. No. It means something much deeper. It means stopping the use of other people as a measure of who you are. And that distinction can completely change the way you live. You can listen to an opinion without obeying it. You can receive criticism without turning it into an identity. You can be loved without needing it to feel valuable. You can be rejected without assuming the rejection proves you are wrong. You can walk alone for a season without concluding that you are lost. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is to become someone whose center is no longer available to every external gaze. And to get there, first you have to discover who has been living your life in your place. There is a question that may make you more uncomfortable than it seems. Who would you be if you did not have to impress anyone? Do not answer too quickly, because your first answer probably still belongs to the persona. Maybe you would say, I would be freer. I would travel more. I would change careers. I would say what I really think. I would dress differently. All of that may be true, But there is an even deeper question. What would remain of you if you removed the need to be perceived in a certain way? That is where the real work begins. The persona is built slowly. First, you learn which behaviors receive approval. Then you repeat those behaviors. You discover that being pleasant prevents conflict, that being successful earns admiration, that being strong creates respect, that being quiet avoids questions, that being useful makes people need you, that being intelligent protects your value, and then you begin building an identity around those traits. The problem is that an identity based entirely on approval requires constant maintenance. You have to keep proving, keep performing, keep being pleasant, keep being strong, keep being successful, because if any of those things disappear, what remains? That is why some people feel strange anxiety when they are doing nothing, not because they have too much time, but because silence temporarily removes the stage where their persona receives confirmation, when nobody needs them, when nobody praises them, when nobody is watching. A disturbing question appears. Who am I when I am not proving anything? That question can feel like emptiness. But maybe it is not emptiness. Maybe it is space. The problem is that you have spent so long filling that space with noise that you forgot what it feels like to be with yourself. So you look for something else. Work, social media, conversations, goals, productivity, relationships, entertainment, comparison. Anything that creates movement again. Because as long as there is movement, you do not have to listen. But noise does not solve disconnection, it only keeps it occupied. And here is one of the most sophisticated traps in personal growth. You can turn personal development into another persona. You become the disciplined person, the conscious person, the successful person, the person who meditates, the person who has everything under control. And now, you are no longer seeking approval for being popular. You are seeking approval for being exceptional. The mechanism is still the same. Only the disguise has changed. That is why real transformation is not about creating a more impressive version of yourself. It is about no longer needing an impressive version to feel worthy. Your mask is not you. You can use it. You can walk into a meeting and be professional. You can take care of your family. You can fulfill your responsibilities, but you do not need to believe that the role contains your entire identity. A person who confuses their uniform with their skin becomes terrified when they have to take it off. And that explains why some people are afraid to change. They do not know what will remain when the character disappears, so do not try to rip it off all at once. Do something smarter. Practice small deviations. Express an honest opinion when you would normally stay silent. Admit that you do not know something. Say no to something you genuinely do not want. Rest without explaining yourself. Do something you enjoy without posting it. Build something no one can applaud. Every small act of authenticity reduces the power of the mask. And now comes the uncomfortable question. What part of your personality would disappear if you stopped trying to please people? You do not need to answer it publicly. You need to be honest with yourself. Jung spoke of individuation as a process through which a person becomes who they truly are. Not who society expects, not who their parents imagined, not who their friends consider successful, not who trends have made desirable, who they actually are. That does not mean inventing an identity from scratch. It means discovering, integrating, and developing what already exists within you, but has been subordinated to collective expectations. And this is where comparison becomes dangerous. Because comparison does not only say, he has more than I do. It can also say, his path is valid and mine is not. That is the real poison. You do not have to hate anyone to betray yourself. You only have to constantly watch someone else's path and conclude that you should be at the same place. Maybe you are 30 and believe you should have accomplished something specific. Maybe you are 40 and feel that you arrived late. Maybe you changed careers. Maybe a relationship ended. Maybe an opportunity never came. Maybe you spent years caring for other people while someone else built a career. And now you look around and feel that you wasted time. But who decided the timeline? Who said that a correct life has to follow a specific sequence? Society creates timelines because it needs to simplify millions of different lives. But your psyche does not function like a spreadsheet. There are periods of expansion, periods of loss, periods of silence, periods of confusion, periods when apparently nothing is happening. And some of those periods may be doing work you cannot see yet. That is why the question should not be, am I moving faster than them? It should be, am I moving in the right direction for me? That changes everything. Because speed without direction is simply movement. You can move 10 times faster and end up 10 times farther from yourself. Imagine a runner. He starts sprinting because he hears everyone else's footsteps. Someone passes him, he speeds up, someone else appears. He changes direction. He keeps looking sideways, and eventually he collapses exhausted. He did not lose because he was weak. He lost because he stopped looking at the path. That is comparison. It forces you to spend energy on speed when what you actually need is direction. Your path has no deadline, and this idea needs to become a practice. Every time you feel that you are behind, stop. Do not immediately look for another external reference. Ask yourself, what am I trying to prove? And then, what would matter to me even if no one could see it? That second question is powerful because it removes the social reward. If nobody could congratulate you for doing it, would you still do it? If nobody knew you trained, would you still train? If nobody admired your business, would you keep building it? If nobody could see your relationship, would you still choose that relationship? If nobody knew you were successful, what kind of success would you pursue? That is where identity reprogramming begins. Not when you repeat a positive statement, when you begin making decisions from a different source. You stop building to be seen. You start building because something inside you considers it worth doing. That is radical discipline. Not doing more. Doing what is aligned even when nobody is watching. But even after you leave comparison behind, another trap remains. You can stop competing and still feel watched. You can say, I don't care who is ahead anymore, and still feel anxious when someone criticizes you. You can stop comparing yourself and still interpret every look as judgment. You can believe someone disapproves of you when that person is simply thinking about their own life. Why does this happen? This is where projection enters. Jung used this concept to describe how certain internal contents can unconsciously be attributed to other people. And this idea is brutally important. Because some of what you believe the world thinks about you may actually be what you think about yourself. Maybe you say, everyone thinks I'm incompetent, but there is already a voice inside you saying it. Everyone thinks I'm strange. Maybe you are the one who still has not accepted a part of yourself. Everyone thinks I'm behind. Maybe you are the one who has not forgiven yourself for failing to follow an imaginary timeline. Then something strange happens. The world becomes a screen, and you project onto it what you still cannot look at directly. That is why one person can walk into a room with 10 people and feel that everyone is judging them, while another person walks into the same room and simply sees 10 people. The environment is the same, the perception is not. Your perception is conditioned by your internal structure. And this has a practical consequence. The next time you feel that someone is judging you, do not immediately ask, why are they judging me? Ask, what part of me feels judged? Those are not the same question. One searches for a culprit, the other searches for information. What you project controls you. This does not mean every judgment is imaginary. People really do judge. People really do criticize. Sometimes someone really does disapprove of your decisions. But even then, you have a choice. You can allow that opinion to become a definition of you, or you can observe it as external information. Not every opinion deserves to become an identity. Not every criticism deserves to become a wound. Not every silence means rejection. Not every facial expression contains a message about you. Your limited perception can turn an ambiguous signal into a sentence, and when you do that repeatedly, you build a world where you are always under threat, so you need to reclaim something validation has stolen: your spiritual economy, your attention, your energy, your ability to decide where your mind goes. Every minute you spend trying to figure out what other people think is energy you are not using to live. Every unnecessary comparison consumes attention. Every attempt to control someone else's opinion consumes energy. Every hour spent trying to prove your value is an hour you are not using to build it internally. That is why the real shift is not, I am going to make sure nobody judges me. It is, I am going to stop giving my peace to what I cannot control, and to do that you need silence, not as punishment, as training. Step 1. Recognize the external gaze. In this step, you are going to reclaim something simple, but potentially life-changing, the ability to notice when you are living for an external reaction. For one day, do not try to change anything, just observe. Every time you are about to make a decision, ask, do I want this? Or, do I want the reaction I expect to receive from doing it? The difference is brutal. Maybe you choose certain clothes because you genuinely like them, or maybe because you know they create a certain impression. Maybe you want to post something because you want to share it, or because you want to prove that you are progressing. Maybe you want to accept an opportunity, or because you are afraid that rejecting it will make people think you are wasting your potential. Do not judge the answers. Observe them. Awareness comes before transformation. Stop asking permission to exist. The emotional slave reacts to the gaze. The trained mind observes it. The analogy is simple. Imagine walking with a compass. Suddenly, a group of people appears walking north. Everyone looks confident. So you follow them. Not because you have confirmed that north is your direction, because their certainty makes you doubt your own. That is what happens when collective opinion replaces personal judgment. And here is the uncomfortable question. What would you do differently if you knew no one could judge you? Do not answer with a fantasy. Think of a real decision, a conversation, a project, a boundary, a change. That is your first clue. Step 2. Identify your persona. Now you are going to observe the mask, not to destroy it, to recognize it. Think about the different environments in your life. Who are you at work? Who are you with your family? Who are you with your friends? Who are you when you are alone? Now ask, what part of me appears only because I want to be perceived in a certain way? Maybe you are always the strong one, the one who solves everything, the one who never needs help. Maybe you are always the agreeable one, the one who avoids conflict, the one who says it's fine when it is not. Maybe you are the successful one, the one who always needs an answer, the one who cannot tolerate looking confused. The persona does not always appear as arrogance. Sometimes it appears as perfection, sometimes as humility, sometimes as self-sufficiency, sometimes even as kindness. Because any trait can become a mask when you need to maintain it in order to feel valuable. Your mask is not you. You can use it. You can walk into a meeting and be professional. You can take care of your family. You can fulfill your responsibilities, but you do not need to believe that the role contains your entire identity. A person who confuses their uniform with their skin becomes terrified when they have to take it off. And that explains why some people are afraid to change. They do not know what will remain when the character disappears. So do not try to rip it off all at once. Do something smarter. Practice small deviations. Express an honest opinion when you would normally stay silent. Admit that you do not know something. Say no to something you genuinely do not want. Rest without explaining yourself. Do something you enjoy without posting it. Build something no one can applaud. Every small act of authenticity reduces the power of the mask. And now the uncomfortable question, what part of your personality would disappear if you stopped trying to please people? You do not need to answer it publicly. You need to be honest with yourself. Step 3. Leave the race. This step is about comparison, and you need to understand something. You cannot win a race you never chose. Every time you compare your life with someone else's, you are accepting their variables, their age, their circumstances, their resources, their opportunities, their personality, their path. And then you use all of that to condemn yourself. It is absurd. And yet we do it every day. You look at someone who is financially ahead, but you do not know their sacrifices. You look at someone who seems to have a perfect relationship. You do not know their private life. You look at someone who built a business. You do not know 10 years of failure. You look at someone else's result and compare it with the process you are currently living. That is not a fair comparison. It is limited perception turned into a sentence. Your path has no deadline. From today on, whenever you feel the need to compare yourself, change the question. Do not ask, why are they there and I am not? Ask, what does my next stage require? That returns your attention. Because the goal is not to feel better than other people, it is to return to your own path. Your next step may be small, but it must be yours. An hour of study, a difficult conversation, a project, a boundary, a habit, a decision. Momentum does not mean moving desperately. It means creating coherent movement. One step of your own is worth more than 10 steps driven by comparison. And now the uncomfortable question, are you really behind, or are you trying to reach a destination someone else chose for you? Step 4. Withdraw the projection. This may be the most uncomfortable step, because it requires you to stop using the world as your automatic explanation for your discomfort. When someone criticizes you, observe your first reaction. Is it, how dare they? Or, why does this affect me so much? That does not mean the other person is right. It means your reaction contains information. Maybe they touched an insecurity. Maybe they activated a part of you that you have been avoiding. Maybe the criticism confirms a story you have been telling yourself for years. Here is a simple tool you can use. Every time you feel that someone is judging you, write down 3 things. Fact, interpretation, internal story. For example, fact, they did not reply to my message. Interpretation, they are angry with me. Internal story, I always end up disappointing people. See the difference? The fact is small. The mind built the rest. This practice does not eliminate reality. It eliminates the confusion between reality and interpretation. What you project controls you, and when you withdraw the projection, you recover energy. The analogy is a projector. If you place a movie in front of a wall, you can forget that you are watching a projection. The wall seems to contain the story, but the story comes from somewhere else. Your mind can do the same thing. A look becomes rejection. A pause becomes contempt. A criticism becomes humiliation. Someone else's success becomes proof of your failure. The external world becomes a screen. Your job is to reclaim the projector. And here is the uncomfortable question. What part of yourself are you forcing other people to represent? Maybe you are making someone the judge because you still do not know how to stop judging yourself. Maybe you are making someone the critic because you still have an internal voice that never forgives your mistakes. You do not need to destroy that voice. You need to know it, integrate it, stop obeying it automatically. Step 5. Learn to be alone now comes a practice many people avoid. Being alone without immediately filling the space, no phone, no music, no content, no conversations, no productivity disguised as purpose, just you. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. That is precisely what makes it interesting. Because silence does not create what is inside you, it reveals it. Silence gives your voice back. Start with 15 minutes. Do not try to solve your life. Sit, walk, write, observe. Let thoughts appear without turning each one into an order. Boredom may appear, anxiety, desire, memories, ideas, even sadness. You do not have to escape. Solitude is like a lake. When the wind is blowing, the surface is distorted. You cannot clearly see the bottom. But when the movement settles, you begin to distinguish what was there all along. Your inner life works in a similar way. When you are constantly reacting to messages, opinions, news, trends, and expectations, it becomes difficult to hear anything that belongs to you. That is why you need spaces without an audience, spaces where nobody can applaud you, because there you will discover a fundamental difference. Doing something because it matters to you, and doing something because you want it to be seen. The second needs spectators, the first needs meaning. And here is the uncomfortable question. What appears inside you when you no longer have anyone to distract your attention? Do not run from that answer. It may contain exactly what you have been trying to find. Step 6. Build a disciplined inner life. Introspection without action can become another form of avoidance. You can analyze yourself for years, read books, listen to podcasts, watch videos, understand your patterns, and continue living exactly the same way. That is why there comes a point when you have to turn awareness into discipline. Not discipline to prove yourself, discipline to build yourself. Choose small actions that only you know about. Read 10 pages, write for 5 minutes, train, organize your space, work for 1 focused hour, keep a small promise. You do not need to tell anyone. In fact, at first, it may be better if nobody knows, because you are trying to break an association. Action, recognition. You want to build a new one. Action, coherence. Keep your word in silence. Think about a tree. The leaves receive attention. The roots do not. But when a storm arrives, nobody asks about the leaves. The question is, how deep are the roots? Your life works the same way. Appearance can impress for a while, but pressure reveals structure. Inner discipline is the practice of strengthening what nobody sees, and this changes your identity. You are no longer someone trying to become disciplined. You are someone who keeps small promises to themselves. The difference sounds semantic. It is not. It is identity reprogramming. Every time you do what you said you would do, even when nobody knows, you send yourself a message. I can trust myself. And that trust is far more powerful than any compliment. The uncomfortable question is, who would you become if for 6 months you did the right thing without anyone knowing? Do not imagine a spectacular transformation. Imagine something more dangerous. A calm person. A consistent person. A person who is difficult to manipulate, because they no longer need to constantly prove who they are. Step 7. Withdraw your energy from the world. Now we reach the final level, and it is the most subtle. You may have stopped comparing yourself. You may have worked on your persona. You may understand your projections. You may tolerate solitude. You may be disciplined. And yet there may still be a small expectation, a silent expectation. Are they seeing it? Will they recognize it? Will they be proud? Am I doing this right? That is validation dependence in its most refined form. You are no longer chasing applause. You are waiting for confirmation. And while you wait, part of your energy is still outside of you. Your worth needs no witnesses. This does not mean you should never enjoy recognition. Of course you can. The problem is not receiving approval. The problem is needing it to remain stable. You can accept a compliment without turning it into your identity. You can receive criticism without turning it into condemnation. You can be ignored without feeling that you no longer exist. You can do something extraordinary and never post it. You can build something valuable and allow its value to exist even if nobody knows about it. That is emotional independence, not needing no one, but not needing their reaction to determine your stability. Imagine your energy as water. When you constantly seek approval, that water spreads everywhere. Some of it goes into social media, some into opinions, some into comparison, some into anticipating criticism, some into maintaining an image. And when you finally withdraw that energy, it does not disappear. It returns. It feeds your roots. Your concentration improves. That is emotional independence, not needing no one, but not needing their reaction to determine your stability. Imagine your energy as water. When you constantly seek approval, that water spreads everywhere. Some of it goes into social media, some into opinions, some into comparison, some into anticipating criticism, some into maintaining an image. And when you finally withdraw that energy, it does not disappear. It returns. It feeds your roots. Your concentration improves. If nobody applauded your life, would you still choose it? If the answer is yes, you are building something real. If the answer is no, you do not need to be ashamed. You have just discovered where you are still negotiating with yourself, and now you can work on it. Block 5. You no longer need to be seen. Maybe at the beginning you thought this message meant, stop caring about other people. No. It means something much more precise. Stop using other people to define yourself. You can love people without needing their approval. You can listen to advice without turning it into an order. You can accept criticism without turning it into an identity. You can be surrounded by people without losing yourself inside them. And you can also be alone without feeling that life has abandoned you. That is the real return. The external gaze loses its authority. The persona stops governing. Comparison loses its power. Projection comes back to you. Solitude stops being a threat. Discipline builds roots, and the energy you once spent trying to be seen returns to your own life. That was the goal from the beginning, not to become indifferent, to become internally oriented, because maybe your problem was never that you lacked an identity. Maybe you had one. It was simply buried beneath too many expectations, too many comparisons, too many shoulds, too many attempts to prove that you were enough. And now you need to remember something. You do not need to live faster to catch up with anyone. You do not need to live correctly to be accepted. You do not need to live bigger to prove your worth. You do not need to turn every part of your life into evidence that you are progressing. You can build quietly. You can move slowly. You can change direction. You can make mistakes. You can begin again and still be yourself. The question is no longer, what will they think of me? It is this aligned with who I am? That is the new axis, and when the axis changes, life changes. It does not necessarily become easier, it becomes truer, because you stop using your attention to control what cannot be controlled. You stop wasting your energy trying to manage other people's perception, and you begin investing it in what you actually control: your character, your decisions, your attention, your habits, your direction, your inner world. That is spiritual economy. Not wasting the energy of your life on things that cannot give anything back. So the next time you feel that someone is judging you, stop. Before reacting, ask, what part of me is asking for approval? The next time you compare yourself, ask, am I running my race or someone else's? The next time you feel the need to prove something, ask, would I still do this if nobody could see it? And when silence appears, do not run from it immediately. Maybe that is where the voice you have been waiting to hear is. Yours. You do not need to forget everyone. You need to stop forgetting yourself. And maybe that is the real reason you felt recognized from the beginning, because some part of you already knew this. You simply needed to stop listening to the world long enough to hear it. If you made it this far, do not turn this moment into another idea you consume and abandon. Make it practical. Choose one decision, one habit, one boundary, one conversation, one area of your life that you have organized around external approval, and take your power back. Write in the comments, I choose myself, not as a declaration against other people, as a commitment to yourself. And if you are willing to rebuild your character from within, stay on this path, because the goal was never to become a better version of yourself so the world could admire you. The goal is deeper. To stop losing yourself inside the world. Focus on yourself. Forget the rest, and become the person who does not need anyone watching to know who they are.